He should be apologising.
Ever since this encounter with Mick Lynch, I've become fascinated with Tory MP Jonathan Gullis.
It's the doctors and nurses who can't get to hospital, the patients who can't get their operation, the kids who will miss out on their education today, but also those armed forces veterans who risk their lives for our freedoms, who won't be able to celebrate Armed Forces Day on Saturday.
This is classic Gullis, starting any disagreement with a bug up his arse. Look at his face as Mick Lynch deals with his argument.
Do you want to apologise for all that, Mick?
Well, I think Jonathan should apologise for talking nonsense. None of that is true. That is just stuff that's written in Conservative Central Office for backbench MPs to spout
no
along
sorry
with their
to veterans,
ministers.
Mick. Okay, so no
Now,
sorry to
I
veterans.
don't want this disruption.
Fine.
I don't want people to be
Good to know veterans are going to be
inconvenienced,
left
and I
without
want a
celebrating.
settlement to this dispute. I can't do that with a backbench MP who's just learned it off a script.
With his almost permanent scowl hanging from his face like soggy pyjamas on a peg, angry mode seems to be his default setting. Whether in Parliament...
Mr. Speaker, a minority of woke warrior teachers think it's acceptable to push extremist nonsense onto pupils such as white privilege and try to cancel important historical figures such as Sir Winston Churchill.
Or doing work around his constituency.
Where savages and antisocial behaviour causes mayhem for local businesses and local people.
Recently, he appeared on Ian Dale's LBC programme to talk about the Tories' plan to reduce what they term as Mickey Mouse degrees. Basically, I imagine subjects they inherently don't like. Sociology or art, for example.
Jonathan, what's the logic there?
The logic is that university, of course, is one option, but actually we want to make sure we have a better funded further education, particularly in apprenticeships, because we ultimately believe that's the way that you're going to really improve social mobility. I don't think it's unfair to ask for a grade 4 old money C- in English and Maths at GCSE and 3 E's at A-level in order to be able to access student loan, which is taxpayer funded up front.
Jonathan begins okay, but he seems disgruntled, as if he's realised he hasn't wiped his bottom properly and wants to get through this discussion so he can deal with it. So he gets quite a long say here. Finally, we get to hear from another panel member.
We haven't valued enough our further education and skill sector, and that's why I want to see the balance readdressed.
David Aronovich.
I'm not sure I understand what problem you're trying to address here. I just don't get it. If you want to significantly boost the FE sector, which you have slashed in the most, to the most significant level, you will say that was necessary because it was necessary after 2010. Then in that case, that's what you do, build it up.
Look at that face. He's getting angry.
50% of people do go to HE, and it's not that many at the moment. 50% don't. You've still got that 50% who you can try and push towards FE. It's not that, actually, and the mass migration point's completely relevant here.
So he gets a bit aerated and starts being personal.
You just kind of bung that in order to kind of get a little bit of applause.
David, as a former Euro-communist, I'm not surprised you're saying that, but that's fine.
The word former is quite important there.
So still communist?
Because I was actually 21 and I'm now 69. I am.
And from here on in, well, we'll let you watch as it gets a little heated.
I'm 69. I think the kind of succeeding 48 years, I'm allowed to have kind of tempered my views slightly. But when you get to my age, you'll have tempered your views as well, and you might have come back to planet Earth, Jonathan.
Why are you sneering at the idea that we'd want more people to go into further education? This metropolitan elitist idea that somehow university is the be-all and end-all is absolutely for the birds. What we want to see is more kids get into skilled qualifications. We need more welders and more bricklayers. We've come up with a system and ideas, fully costed in our 70-point plan, which is something you haven't read, let's be perfectly honest, actually outlining a very clear proposal of how we can readdress the balance, how we can make sure that graduates aren't going in to do degrees that are ultimately they're going to make them earn more money than the apprentices.
Okay. Ian, he's on automatic pilot now.
No.
I mean, so can we turn this
I'm
back to
talking
the
from lived experience, David.
You've had a good
I actually used to be a teacher on the front line. I was a trade union rep also during that time as well. Don't lecture me about education, man. I actually spent 8.5 years, day in, day out, in classrooms in state secondary schools.
Jonathan, no one can talk to you about education, let alone lecture you about education. Clearly, that kind of spirit you learned in the classroom of telling your students what they should think is not something you've lost.
The teacher is the expert in the room. The teacher is the expert in the room. That's how teaching works.
But my suggestion to you is forget the business about trying to penalise students who want to go into higher education.
No one's penalising students.
Yeah, yes, you are. That's what you're asking to do.
3
anyway,
E's A-level is a
forget
pass.
that. Boost the FE sector. Boost the apprenticeship. Forget the business about attacking migration, because in the long term you're going to require that migration anyway, because because we're going to have fewer young people in the population. That's the situation, demographic situation for us. Address the real problems and stop kind of trying to hit the hot buttons for a section of the electorate, really, that's never going to get you back into power.
Click here for Jonathan Gullis's Scumbag Tour.